offline, but I'm not sure how far it is possible. Otherwise, we'll have to decide on a mode of evaluation for the final test. So remember that 2 tests will be required, and by next week you should give me one date in the last week of November. That means 29th, starting with 29th. So it goes into the first week of December as well. So in that week you will have to give me say around 1 hour time to conduct that test outside of the class hours. We do not want to lose class hours, so that you have to provide me. Okay, is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us start now. And today I am in the department, so I'm using the departmental Wi-Fi. Connection is not quite strong. So if the call drops out, let me know by calling or sending a message to the phone, because I'll be in the AutoCAD page. So if my account leaves the profile, you will be the first to know. Even before I notice it, you will be able to recognize that. So let me know quickly. Okay, so the page is shared. You can see it, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll start the recording. Good afternoon and welcome to this computer-aided drafting class. In today's class, our objective, first of all, is to recapitulate some of the things that we have covered previously, specifically how to create different layers, how to provide dimension style, and how to create a template. Once we have done that, then we'll move on to creating a margin and title block, which will be part of the template. And finally, we'll discuss about the problem sheet that was shared with you in the last week. So that is problem sheet 3. So without further delay, let us begin today's discussions. So first of all, when you open a new sheet, the first thing that you should do is create the layers, appropriate layers. What kind of layers are required in a drawing? Suppose an engineering drawing or a machine drawing. Obviously, you will require an object layer or solid layer. There will be a dashed layer, center layer, thin layer, dimension layer, margin layer, and so on. And all of these layers would be associated with different properties. So how do we create layers? We'll go here. We'll click this button, the new layer button, and quickly name it. Line type should be continuous, and let's say we give it a particular line thickness. Now here what I will do is I will create all the layers with continuous line type first. Then I will go for the other kind of line types. For dimension, let us change the line color. Margin layer usually has a higher line thickness, so we go for 0.4. You can have a text layer as well. has got a thickness of 0.25 mm. We can create a viewport layer. I hope the concept of viewport was clear to you in the last class. And finally, now we go for a dashed layer. For this, the line type needs to change. I cannot use a continuous line type for the dashed layer. So how do we change it? We'll go to load, use ISO dash, press OK. And also at the same time, I'll load this center layer. This is the center layer, press OK. And now you can see that they have come over here. So for the dashed layer, I'll select the ISO dash and press OK. Let's change the color to blue. Create a center layer as well. Change the color to red. Line type should be center. And the line weight is 0.18. Half of the thick layer or the object layer. So these are all the appropriate layers that we require for, I should say preliminarily require for an engineering drawing or a machine drawing. By no means you cannot create more layers. If required, you can create other layers as well. Similarly, some drawings may be there, simpler drawings, simpler engineering drawings or machine drawings, which may not require all these layers to be created. But to be on the safe side, because we are going to be using these layers for creation of the template, it is always a good idea to go for these many layers. So once this is done, you can close this and you can check it from here that all these different layers are present. Next, we'll set up the dimension style. How can we do that? First of all, we need to access the dimension style window. It can be done from this annotation panel under the home tab. Here, the second option over here is the dimension style. It creates and modifies different dimension styles. So if you click that, this dimension style manager will open. You can now modify this. We start with the lines tab, and here the color, the line type, the line weight, all of these things can be set by layer. We have already created all the appropriate layers. So the dimension lines as well as the extension lines should be by layer. So all of them should be selected as by layer. So this is done. Go to symbols and arrows. This is closed filled. If it is not, then you can change that to closed and filled. Arrow size for now, let us keep it as 2.5. If required, later on we can change it from the properties. Then there is the text. For the text option, we can change the font. We can go for a Times New Roman font. Height should be maintained as 0. Press apply and close. So that is all about text. Text height at this point is 2.5. Later on we can modify this from the properties. Here also you have 3 different text alignment options. All are acceptable. Do notice the changes from one to the other. So we can use the ISO standard at this point. But the others are also acceptable. There is no harm in selecting the other text alignment options, that is horizontal and aligned with dimension. If it is horizontal, then you can see that all the dimension text are appearing in horizontal orientation. If it is aligned with the dimension line, then they will be aligned with these dimension lines. And this is the standard. So as I said, for now, let's keep it as ISO standard, but the others are also acceptable. Any questions?
স্যার টেক্সট কালারটা ওটা বাইলেন না করে বাই ব্লক করলেন কেন? মানে ওটা ওইভাবেই ছেড়ে দিলেন কেন?
Text color, did I?
হ্যাঁ
No, it should be changed to bilayer. I have not yet changed it. I was talking about only the standard. I have changed the text. Then I moved to this part. Of course, this has to be bilayer because we have created a text here. So this can be set as bilayer. But always remember that this fill color should be kept as none. Okay. If you do this bilayer, this sort of thing will happen. Okay. This means the text will be, so that should not be made bilayer. This should always be none. That is the fill color option. Okay. So once that is done, we can move to primary units. In fits, we do not need to select any options. Here, that is decimal. Precision you can change as your drawing requires. For now, let us keep it at 0.00. That is 2 places after the decimal. And the important thing that needs to be changed here is the decimal separator. Now this is comma. That is probably a European thing or European style. But here we are more comfortable with the period. That means the dot. So this is the decimal point. So that needs to be selected. Change it from the comma to period. These 2 last tabs you can ignore at this point and press OK. So that is all about the dimension style. So you have already created different layers. You have made the appropriate changes to the dimension style. Next, you just move on to the second tab, that is the layout tab. Now you have to set up the page. This is a viewport. If you bring your cursor over to here, this is the default viewport, as you can see. And for now, you can just select it and delete it. It is not required at this point. Okay, sorry about this. So the viewport is not required at the moment. We'll create our own viewport according to our specifications later on. At this point though, you have to set up the page. So the command is page setup. After writing page setup, hit enter, go to modify. Quite a few things to be changed here, and all of those have been discussed before, but still I will explain. First of all, you need to assign a printer or plotter. As we do not usually have a printer attached to our computers, personal computers at home, we can go for DWG to PDF. That means this is the default PDF converter of AutoCAD. So it will convert the DWG file to PDF. Next is, for now this is ISO A4, which is this. We can also go for A3, A2, A1 options, but those are bigger page areas. So what to plot is layout. There should not be any plot offset. Plot scale should always be set to 1:1. And this one, plot style table, should be monochrome.ctb. This is landscape. Press OK and close. Now we will see that there is a dashed rectangle or dotted rectangle which represents the printable area that has appeared over here. So the preliminary task of creating a page setup is complete, along with creation of layers and setting up of the dimension styles. So what we are moving towards is creating a template which is reusable. Suppose in the next class, when I start the next new drawing, then I will not have to create these layer properties, different layers having different layer properties and the dimension style. I do not have to set up the page again. What I can do is simply open up that template that I'm going to make now and start working directly. So this is the advantage of creating and saving a template. So next task, what we should be concentrating upon is how do we create the margin? Obviously, when I start a new drawing, I need to have a margin and a title block as well. That takes up some time. So why should I invest some time as well when I can save it as part of the template? So this will be available to me again as a ready-made thing when I start the new drawing, next drawing. So how can we go about setting up this margin? Now we have to first of all select the margin layer. So now the margin layer is the current layer. How do you identify which is the current layer? Look for this green tick mark. If it is present beside a layer name, then that layer is the current layer. And all the drawings you make now will be in that particular layer. By the way, in which space we are right now? The space we are right now in is paper space. That is correct. You can check it over here. This is the paper space. The model space is in the model tab. We have left it behind. We have gone to the layout tab, deleted the viewport, so we cannot access the model space from this layout tab right now, but we can bring in our own viewports later. So we are right now at paper space.
স্যার
There was a
বলছিলাম
question? Any question?
ইয়েস স্যার, আপনি ওই এক্সও এর ভ্যালুটা কি সেট করেছিলেন স্যার ওই পেজ সেটআপে? ওখানটায় মানে আমার -2.13 করে দেখাচ্ছে, তো ওটা কি 00 করে দেবো?
No, it should be 0 0. It should be 0 0. Okay, you can forcibly put 0 in both the X and Y boxes. Okay. So we have set the margin layer as the current layer. Let us now begin to draw the margin. I have selected a rectangle, simple rectangle over here, and going as close to the dotted or dashed rectangle as possible, I will create this one. So hopefully it is inside. Yeah. Akshun, any questions?
পেপার স্পেসে আমার গ্রিড আসছে, ওটা কি করবো স্যার?
পেপার স্পেস গ্রিন আসছে বলতে?
গ্রিড মানে বক্সেস আসছে।
Grid.
ইয়েস স্যার, গ্রিড।
So switch off the grid. Is it in the model space? Is it in the model space? I don't think it should be in the model space. Grid should be there.
পেপার স্পেস আছে, মানে লেআউট 1 এ আছে স্যার।
Grid is not to be present here. Okay. You can switch off the grid. Anyway, let us proceed. So this is the outer boundary of the margin. You can check the paper space as well, and you can see that the print preview, and you can see that the entire rectangle is visible. That means everything is within the printable area. Next, we'll use the offset command. Offset distance should be set as 10. Then hit enter and select the rectangle and click on the inside. Hit enter to go out of the command. So you have created the basic outline of the margin. Now we'll explode the inner rectangle, break it up into its component parts, and next we'll use the divide command so that the grid references can be provided. The alphanumeric grid references need to be provided along the top and the sides. that is to be done now. So we'll bring up the divide command. This is the object to be divided. It has to be divided into 6 segments. So that is done. We'll again use the divide command. Select the vertical side, left hand side. Not 6, we can go for 4. So now these sides are divided but not visible because of the points type. So what is the command for bringing up the points type?
P type.
This is P type. That is correct. For P type, select this one, press OK. So now you can see the divisions. So all of these are taking place in the margin layer. Remember that. So now I'll take a line and join it like this. So you can zoom in just a little bit. You can see that we have joined this. Now take the copy command, select the line, hit enter, choose a base point and copy it in the appropriate locations. So 6 divisions are now completed. The same thing can be done for the left hand side as well. So I'll take the line command, join it with the outer boundary and then use the copy command to copy it in the appropriate locations. So here and here. So that completes it. Next, we have to provide the text. This should be A, B, C, D, E, F and 1, 2, 3, 4. These texts should be written. So let us write text in the command prompt, hit enter. We arbitrarily specify a starting place and make the text height as 5. Text angle should be 0. So right and 1. I'll write only these two. Why? Because I'm going to move it, this letter, to its possible place here. Now, if I move it here, do notice that the end point of the line to the left of it, that means the vertex or the corner of the rectangle is now being selected by O snap. You can see a green square over here. So if I now click here, the A will move to that location. You can see what has happened. It has moved to the corner. So it is a good idea to switch off the O snap mode at this point. So I'll just move back, Control Z, let's undo, and switch off O snap, and then move this letter. By eye estimation, try to place it somewhere along the middle. Now I'll use the copy command, copy this letter A, switch on ortho, and move it along the horizontal direction. What will happen is that it will maintain the level. It will remain in the same level. And as a result, it will look better. Next, we can simply edit these things. Double click on that, press backspace space, and put B for this one. This will be C, this is B, Like that, all of them can be modified. Repeat the same thing with the number. For now, let's put off the ortho command. Put it here. Then go to copy the number 1 with respect to this base point. We'll move it vertically down. Ortho should be switched on. Switch off the O snap. That's it. We'll edit it again. This 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So now we have to copy the entire grid to the bottom portion here and to the right over here. So carefully select these different letters and the corresponding lines, these 5 lines. Go to copy, it's already copied, and move to this base point. From this base point, you can simply shift downwards and put it over here. The same thing can be done for the vertical grid. Select the different objects carefully. Go to copy, select a base point and move it to the other side. And that's it. So the grid is now created. The next thing is the title block. The title block can be created quite easily. I will select this corner point and start a line. Relative command @ let's say 50, angle is 9. Go to this position and now we continue the line. So @ 80, the angle is now 180, and we can drop a perpendicular and stop here. So that should be our title block. Now here is an overlapping line. So what you can do is simply select it and delete. Now this line can be divided into 5 parts to create the different rows of the title block. So I'll bring up the divide command again. This object is to be divided into 5 parts, 5 segments. So you can see 5 segments have been created. So each of them would be having a height of 10 units. So I'll simply drop a perpendicular over here for this one as well. Like this. Maybe I can divide this one down the middle so that you can write roll number on one side, department on the other side. This can also be divided. And from the midpoint of this, I'll drop a perpendicular. Dropping this perpendicular is easy if you keep the O snap on. You can see that this is the sign or symbol for the perpendicular. So if you click here, then that creates a perpendicular on this line. So at this point, all the division work is done. So you can bring up the p-type command again and change the point style back to much more clean. What is left is obviously the text required in the title block. Now in this title block I have used a length of 80 mm length has been used. You may use 100 mm as well. I have used 80 to save some space for the drawings over in this area. So let's write some of these. Go for text. Fine. Height is 5. Rotation angle is 0. And write name. Role. Department. You can add title of the drawing. Scale. And projection symbol. The next task would be to move them to appropriate locations. So select this. Also switch off ortho. So like this you can move them to their appropriate locations. And that is done. So everything is ready now. We have created the margin, provided the grids, created the projection, the title block along with the different entries. So next we'll go to save as option and save it as a drawing template. Drawing template is a .dwt file. So select this and let us move to an appropriate location. Go to this PC. You will need to create your own folder in appropriate location in your PC to save it appropriately. So go to class lectures. Today is 8th class here. So let's save it as a template to 4 and save. If required, you can provide a description, but not mandatory. So you can save it like this. So let us now close this file. It has been saved. You can see here that it is saved as temp_a4.dwt. It's written right at the top. So it is saved as a template. So let's close this and go to the location where I had saved it. So you can see this is the. So when you are to create a new drawing, then you can always start with this template. So this will open up and you can see that everything is already set here. All the layers are present, the page setup is done, your margins and the title blocks are ready. So you can just simply start drawing the components or drawing whatever you need to draw from here or the model space. So this is how you can create a template and use it effectively. By the way, one mistake that we had done while creating the template is we have not changed the layers or layer of these different texts. So they should be in the text. So you can just change. So when you open it up like this, then your first task should be to save this. Now, you are not going to save it as a drawing template. You are going to save it as a drawing file. If I want to do the problems given in sheet 3, let's say problem sheet 3, you can name it as sheet 3.bw. As a result of it, your template remains unaffected. The template does not change. So now whatever you draw here will be saved in this sheet 3.bwg file. It does not affect your template. The template remains as you had saved it previously. So obviously now if you move to problem sheet 4, then again you can use it to use that template to lessen your workload. It's the prerequisites that are required for your drawing is already completed and presented that way. So that lessens your work. So any questions up to now?
No, sir.
স্যার এই টেক্সটগুলো ফিট করবো কি করে? মানে স্যার ধরুন নাম বা রোল নাম্বার ধরুন বড় হলো, তাহলে ওই যে স্পেসটা আছে ওর মধ্যে ফিট হবে কি করে?
না না, এখানে এখানে দেখো, এখানে দিস ইজ এ রিপ্রেজেন্টেটিভ টাইটেল। আমি প্রথমেই বললাম যে আমি এই জাস্ট এইটা 80 মিলিমিটার্স নিয়েছি, ক্যান চেক উইথ ডাইমেনশনস ইন অর্ডার টু সেভ সাম স্পেস। এটা তোমার যেরকম মনে হচ্ছে যে তোমার কতটা স্পেস লাগবে, 100 mm লাগবে, ইউ ক্যান ইনক্রিজ ইট।
তো 15 পর্যন্ত করতে পারি।
হ্যাঁ 150 অবধি তো করা যায় ম্যাক্সিমাম।
Which one? Sorry, didn't get you.
স্যার ওই টেমপ্লেট সরি ওই নেম প্লেটের স্যার জায়গাটা ওর ম্যাক্সিমাম লেন্থটা স্যার, মানে যদি আমরা A1
Yeah, you can increase it. You can, yes. If you are going for a say A3 sheet, you will have plenty of space. So space is not going to be a problem because this is an A4 size sheet, and I just wanted to demonstrate a simple title block. That is why I have gone for this. So this can be changed. Another thing is that there are standard title blocks as well. Means how a title block should look like. If you have a look at some drawing books, engineering drawing books, you will see some standard title blocks presented over there. So you can go for those as well, but those are quite elaborate, so they will take up a little bit more space. So my suggestion would be to, if you are going for an A4 sheet, then go for the simplest possible title block. No need to go for standards. So whatever the important informations that are required, that should only be provided. That is name, roll number, department, and title. Like otherwise, have a look at the engineering drawing books. There you will have title blocks which are standardized, and you can use those title blocks for larger size sheets such as A3 and A2. The problem with A3 and A2 size sheet is that we do not get printers of that specification quite often. So you will require a A3 printer. And A3 printers are difficult to come by. Usually we have A4 printers. That's why I have shown you this A4 printer. But one task as a practice that you can do is start from scratch, provide the layer properties, create different layers, make the changes, requisite changes in dimension style, and create a template in terms of an A3 sheet. Set up the page in A3 and create a margin and title, a standard title, so that you can take as a home task and practice. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions? Somebody had a question, I think.
স্যার ওই
questions?
টলারেন্সের ব্যাপারটা কি আমাদের পড়া শেখানো হবে? জিওমেট্রিক টলারেন্স আমি যদি এক্সারসাইজটা দেখছিলাম ছিল মানে
Tolerance as a subject, you will কোথায় লেখা আছে?
একটা আমাদের স্যার ক্যাডের এক্সারসাইজ
Sorry,
শেয়ার
I
করেছিল,
did not get the last part.
একটা স্যার ক্যাডের এক্সারসাইজ বুক শেয়ার করেছিল গ্রুপে, তো ওটাই মানে ছবিগুলো নিচে আর কি দেওয়া ছিল যেখানে জিওমেট্রিক টলারেন্স এত আছে।
Okay. Difficult to say without seeing the problem. Can you share the screen? Then I will stop sharing the screen and you can share the problem. Do you have it? Or otherwise you can এই মুহূর্তে নেই, তাই তো? ঠিক আছে, তুমি সেটা আমাকে মেল করে দিতে পারো. I will see what kind of tolerance they are talking about. Then I can probably I'll be able to answer. But usually this is the basic course, so we do not deal with geometric tolerances in this course. But tolerance means, if I can just go off track for just a little bit, it means that if you make a component, let's say its design or design width is 15 millimeters, you will have to make it by some manufacturing process. You will have to fabricate, and however precise that fabrication process is, you will not get 15 millimeters exact. If you make 100 components, then some of them will be of say dimension less than 15 mm, maybe 14.98, 14.99, going down to 14.95. Some of them may be higher than 15 as well, 15.02, 15.03, like that. So what is the acceptable limit, acceptable tolerance within which you will consider that this part is okay? So that tolerance has to be provided by the designer as well. So at the beginning itself, the designer would give an acceptable tolerance range, say 15 plus minus 0.02. That means 14.98 to 15.02. This dimension, that much dimension is acceptable. If any component is less than that or more than that in dimension, then that is rejected in quality. So that is the concept of tolerances, and those tolerances can also be given in AutoCAD.
স্যার আমি পেজ দেখাবো কি স্যার করে?
হ্যাঁ, দেখাও. Stop sharing now. Tolerances will be first of all dealt with in detail in machine design, I think. Okay. So you can see that it's given as plus minus, isn't it? So that is the range of tolerance. How much is the acceptable limit? So this is one of the standard one can say title blocks that I was talking about. So you can create these sort of title blocks as well. For your practice you can do that. But for A4 sheet, it takes a bit of space, quite a bit of space. That is why I usually tend to not advise creating such standard title blocks over here. But as I said, if you go for an A3 sheet, you can obviously practice with those title blocks. Okay, so now let us have a look at problem sheet 3. Let us have a look at this problem sheet 3. So this is, you can see that on the outside you have margin and the grid references. You have a title block.
স্যার আপনি স্ক্রিনটা একটু শেয়ার করুন স্যার, আপনি বন্ধ করে দিয়েছেন।
শেয়ার করা আছে? No, শেয়ার করা আছে। Can you not see it?
না না স্যার, দেখাচ্ছে না।
Is it? It's not shown. The screen is shared.
স্যার দেখাচ্ছে না কিন্তু।
Okay. Let me just refresh this page again. Just a moment. Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Can you see it? Okay. So maybe some problem. Last day also, yesterday also, I had such a problem with chemical computer-aided drafting. Page was shared, but they could not see. I don't know why this is happening. But anyway, let's move forward. This is visible, right? You can see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is problem sheet 3, and as you can see, this is basically a practice on the basis of different layers, template, and dimensions. So you can create this in the layout itself. So obviously you will have to set up an A4 sheet in the page setup. You will of course need to make the required layers and then create this margin with grid references and the title block. Once that is done, then in the paper space you are required to draw these different simple geometric entities. These are basically some lines and circles grouped together. You have this set of continuous circles, dashed circles, and these centerline circles. So obviously you can guess that you have to create the different layers. You have thick lines over here, thin lines over here. These are probably thin lines with dashed line type. Center line also have to be thinner than the object lines. So dimensions are provided for all of them. You can very easily create these things. Hatching marks are also to be provided in certain components. Right? Now, one thing I would mention here is that the hatching marks, these marks should always be kept in the inlet. So these hatching marks should be in the inlet. Object lines, the outside lines will be the object layer. The inner hatching marks are thin. The interesting object in this sheet is the bottommost one, this one. You can see here that there are some broken lines provided. This total distance is 240, but with these broken sections. What it means is that within those two broken lines, that means this line and this line, there is a larger line, but it does not have any kind of interesting part to it. So it's simply a continuation of these two lines. There is nothing interesting happening within these broken areas. That's why this broken section is provided to reduce its size. So what it means is that this line length, actual dimension of this line is not 240. Probably it's going to be closer to 150 or something like that. So we are representing a larger dimension with a representative small line with the help of two broken sections, one here and one. Now, how do you provide these broken sections? Any ideas? You can use the spline command. Spline command is used to create continuous lines. So here you can use the spline command to have continuous smooth curves. Let me just demonstrate how this object can be drawn. I'm going to draw it over here in the paper space. In fact, this problem sheet 3 tells you to create everything in paper space. That means for this particular problem sheet, you do not need to create a viewport. So we can simply create all the geometric entities over here. I do not need a viewport. So you are not required to make it in this model space. You will be making all the components in the paper space. So let's see how we can make this. First of all, let's change the layer to object and start with a rectangle. The opposite corner of this rectangle is provided by relative command, and I'll provide it as 150, 50. If you compare this rectangle with a line of, say, length 240, you can see that it crosses over to the margin area. This is going to be quite big. So basically what we are doing is, this is not 240. This cannot be 240. So we are representing a larger length line with a representative smaller dimension, smaller. Let me just delete this. Now we have to create the two circles. So they are at the midpoint of this rectangle. The larger one has a radius of 30 and a diameter of 60. So provided radius 30 over here. The next circle has a radius of 50. So a diameter of 30. So that is clear. Now, these inside parts are to be removed. You can check the figure. There are no lines here. So, which option to use? Trim. This will act as the cutting edge. And I will remove this part and this part. So, the outline of this object is coming out okay. So these lines are required. That's one line. I'll join the quadrant points of this circle. If you compare it with this, we have created the core object already. What is missing is the small circles, 4 circles that are there. So let us now create that. But for that, I will have to locate the center first. How can you locate the center? Let's look at the dimensions here. So this is 11. So in the horizontal direction from the edge it is at a distance of 11, and vertically that distance would be 50 minus 26 divided by 2. So that is 24 by 2 is 12. So 11 horizontally, 12 vertically. So let's take a line at the rate 11 angle 0, and again right at the rate 12, and the angle would be 27. Will move downward. That is the center point. Take the circle. What is the diameter of the circle? Check here. So phi is 10. Radius would be 5. Put 5 here. Once that is created, you can delete these two lines. Do not forget to delete those lines. Those are simply aids in construction. So you can say those are construction lines. You can remove those construction lines once you have created the circle. Now how do you create the other? I'm not going to draw them again. I can use the array command, I can use the copy command, or even I can use the mirror command. So it is up to you, your personal choice, how you want to create that. So
Sir,
how can we use the mirror command? Select the mirror option, select the object. Yes, bolo.
স্যার আমার just একটা ছোট্ট কোশ্চেন, আপনি একটা মানে কমান্ড থেকে বাইরে না গিয়ে সেটাকে বারবার ইউজ করেন কি করে? মানে আমি যখনই ওটাকে এন্টার বা এস্কেপ যেটা টিপি সঙ্গে সঙ্গে ওটা মানে কমান্ড থেকে বাইরে চলে যায়। মানে ধরুন স্যার আপনি একটা লাইন
That it will happen. Yes, it will happen. I have taken this line, right?
মানে আমি আপনাকে এক্ষুনি দেখলাম যে আপনি ওটা মানে
কোন কমান্ডটা বলো?
স্যার আপনি
লাইন কমান্ড তো অলওয়েজ কন্টিনিউ হবে।
হ্যাঁ মানে এটা আপনি হ্যাঁ এবারে আপনি আবার মানে লাইন কমান্ডটা ইউজ করতে চান, কিন্তু ওই লাইনে ওই যে
লাইনে ক্লিক না করে, তাই তো?
Yes, sir.
So there is a shortcut. There is a shortcut. You just hit enter. You see, line. The previous command has come up again. Read the command prompt.
আচ্ছা তো মানে ওটা রিটার্ন হয়ে গেল আবার।
That will be repeated. It works for any kind of command. If I draw a circle, ठीक है? I have gone out of the command. Okay, circle has been drawn. So it's simply hitting enter will bring up the previous command again.
Okay, sir.
Specify center. Our circle command ta fixed. So that is just a keyboard shortcut. I think I should have mentioned this before, but somehow it skipped my mind. So it's a very useful option to have. If you want to repeat the previous command, simply hit enter. Okay. So what we are doing? We are creating mirrors of the circle. So now I can select these two circles together, hit enter, give the mirror line, do not erase the source objects, and hit enter. So that is created. Now can you tell me how to create these features, these two features? First of all, I'll have to create a gap over here.
স্যার মাল্টিপল পয়েন্টস এন্ড ওই স্প্লাইন দিয়ে করতে হবে।
Yes, but how do you create the gap first of all? You have a break option.
হ্যাঁ স্যার ব্রেক,
Remember that break at a point and
Yes,
break.
yes.
So I'll use the break option. Select this object, and there is a gap that is created. Okay. Now I can use the same thing on the other side. So this gap is smaller. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's see what we can do with spline. I'll zoom in just a little bit. And now these points can be given quite arbitrarily. Okay. So there is a small gap over here, which should not be. I can extend it up to the point, I think. So the gap should be closed. There should not be any kind of gaps. So that is done. It can be copied again, or you can make a separate another spline over here. I will use the copy command to make it fit. This is the base point. Copy it. But there is a gap, as you can see. The gap needs to be closed. So you can always use the extend command. Select the boundary and draw. It does not exactly look like this, but it does not have to. So some kind of a break line would be sufficient. So on the other side, again, you can use the mirror command. Select the two splines, hit enter, specify the mirror line, not erase the source of it. So it is now mirrored on the other side as well. But there is a join in between them. It has to be a gap. You can see here. Now I can use the trim command. I'll use these two splines as the cutting edge and remove the portion in between. Same to be done on the other side. Now the object is almost ready. What is left is obviously the dimensioning part and the hatching. Do the hatching part first. Go to the hatch command and select ANSI 31 and use it over. But I think this is just a little bit denser, so you can change the hatch pattern scale. This is the hatch pattern scale. You can make it 0.5. So that is it. But as I said, the hatching needs to be in thin layer. So go to this drop down list and make the layer thin. Let's change it to thin layer and put the other hatching marks as well. Again, then do this, but this time the hatch pattern scale is just 1, so the spacing increases. You can see that the spacing has increased, and that is what is given over here. On the other side, you can see that the orientation has changed by 90 degrees. So how can we do that? Go to hatch again, go to this side. Now this is continuous, means both sides have the same orientation, same alignment. But if you change this angle, this is the hatch pattern angle or hatch angle. If you make this angle of 90 degrees, then it goes to the opposite. And switch on the line type scale, and you can see that all the object lines are thick lines and these hatch lines are thin lines. I'll show you one dimension. Let's change to dimension layer and provide this linear dimension from this end to this end. And you can see that it comes out as 150, and that is what is expected, because we had created a rectangle with 150 mm length and 50 mm width. But as per the drawing, this has to show up as 240. So what to do? I'll just simply go to
Override.
properties and make use of the
Override.
text override option. That is correct. So you can see that the measurement is 150, no doubt about that, but I will represent it the same length as 240. Let's see, this is 240. So this is how you can create such an object using the various commands. So how it will look in the preview? You can go to the print preview option or plot preview option, and you can see this. So if you take a printout, it will be exactly like this. Okay, so that's one problem done. Any questions?
এটা কি তাহলে স্কেলটা মানে চেঞ্জ করবো না 1:1?
Do you have any questions regarding this?
স্যার এটা কি মানে স্কেলটা তাহলে চেঞ্জ করতে হবে মানে 150টা 240 করতে 1:1 এর জন্য?
No. This is 1:1. This is 1:1. That is the advantage of this broken section. Don't need to change the scale. Scale will be 1:1. Okay, so you will try to do this particular sheet on your own. Okay.
এটা কি একটা সিটেই সবগুলো
paper
করতে
space.
হবে?
That might be a little challenging. So getting everything done inside the space available. So for that, just give it a little bit of thought at the beginning. Use the dimensions given here judiciously, and then you will be able to do that. Okay. বলো।
স্যার ওই স্ট্রেচ কমান্ডটা ইউজ করে মানে যখন ধরুন আমার লেন্থটা বেশি হয়ে যাচ্ছে তাহলে ওই স্ট্রেচ কমান্ডটা ইউজ করে ওটাকে মানে ছোট করা যাবে?
তুমি বলছো যে আমি 240 ড্র করলাম, তারপরে সেটাকে ছোট করব।
মানে স্যার ধরুন
সেটা কেন
আপনি
করা
এই
যায়?
অবজেক্টটা এঁকেছেন, এবারে আপনি দেখছেন যে পেজটা মানে যখন অন্য অবজেক্টগুলো আঁকছি তখন মানে পেজটাতে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে, তাহলে সেক্ষেত্রে আমি যদি এটা আমাদের টেক্সটটা ওভাররাইট করে দিচ্ছি তাহলে আমি ওটা জাস্ট বোঝানোর জন্য করছি যে এটা 240, তো আমি এটাকে ছোট করে দিতে চাই, তাহলে স্ট্রেচ কমান্ডটা ইউজ করে ছোট করে দেওয়া যেতে পারে।
স্ট্রেচ কমান্ডটা দিয়ে ছোট করলে তোমার অন্য যে এন্টিটিগুলো আছে, ধরো এই সার্কেলগুলো, সেগুলোও কিন্তু সিমিলারলি শ্রিঙ্ক করবে
হ্যাঁ স্যার,
যদি তুমি সেগুলো সিলেক্ট করো, ঠিক আছে? আর যদি না সিলেক্ট করো দেন দে উইল গো আউট অফ দি অবজেক্ট। তোমার রেক্ট্যাঙ্গেলটা শ্রিঙ্ক হয়ে গেল কিন্তু সার্কেলগুলো বাইরে থেকে যাবে, so that could be a problem. Okay. Any other questions? If not, then we'll end this class. Okay.
স্যার আমরা কি একটু অফলাইন আসতে পারি স্যার? আমরা যদি আসতে পারি
হ্যাঁ স্যার, আমরা এটাই বলতে
আপনি কোথায়
আসতে পারি স্যার।
খুঁজে পাওয়া যাবে স্যার?
ডিপার্টমেন্টে এলেই পাবে,
স্যার কোন রুমে স্যার? মানে আপনার
রুমে
ইয়ে
দোতলায় মেকানিক